So protein binding studies can be done by either by the in vitro method or the in vivo method. Before we proceed with how to do that in vitro method or the in vivo method, in both the cases, we have to keep in mind that it's a drug and protein which is binding, and not necessary that all the drug will bind to the protein. So there is a chances of both the proportions, that is drug binding to the protein as well as the free drug presence. So when you experimentally you want to determine how much drug is bonded to the protein, you should actually have analytical methods, okay, or experimental procedures which helps us to estimate the amount of the free drug and also the amount of the drug binding to the protein, so that it becomes easy for us to analyze or understand how much drug is getting bonded to the protein. If at all you are going with the plasma sample, you need to separate the blood sample, you need to separate the plasma, and in the plasma you have to determine the percentage of the unbound drug. Okay. So initially it's an in vivo method, but when the sampling is done, after that it is an in vitro method. Fine. But if at all you want to understand or to actually understand how the drug is binding to the protein, you can exclusively carry out the in vitro method. As I told, test tube methods, a simple experiment, a known concentration of protein is taken in the test tubes, and to that you are adding the different concentration of the drug and then estimating the unbounded. So ultimately, either it's an in vivo, you take the plasma sample, or you take the in vitro samples. In both the cases, we should have some experimental procedure which helps us to separate the bound drug from the unbound drug. So that's when the two method comes into picture, which generally we are going to use it. That is the equilibrium dialysis method, and other one is the ultrafiltration method. In both the cases, either you go the dialysis method, we use the dialysis membrane, and through that membrane, only the free drug will come out. So it acts as a donor compartment. I don't know how much you can understand at this point. This is an experiment where you talk about like a donor compartment and the receiver compartment. Imagine a plastic bag with a dialysis membrane. That the membrane also as transparent as your plastic, that the transparent plastic bags. Okay, so imagine a small pouch of this dialysis membrane into which you are adding the sample, which contains both the bonded drug and the unbonded drug. And this you are going to immerse into the buffer solution. And now the free drug will move from the donor to the buffer solution, and the buffer solution is called as the receiver compartment. So that is called as a donor, in which you are actually taking the sample, and when the drug comes out of the membrane, and that receiving part is called as the receiver compartment. Donor compartment and the receiver compartment is called. If at all you are using the equilibrium dialysis technique. If at all it is an ultrafiltration technique where you are applying the filtration process, again where the free drug will try to move out of after the filtration process. So anyway, we are not going to learn in detail all this technique, but I'm just giving you idea. There are methods by which you can separate the free drug from the unbound drug. So keeping, okay, this was just a basic idea for you to know. We need to understand the drug protein binding because it is a very important process happening in the body, which can affect so many other ongoing process for any drug, like elimination, distribution. All these are dependent on the drug protein binding, especially the plasma protein. And also we got also have idea what is the consequences of the drug binding to the tissue. It has to bind to the tissue to exert its action. Without that, you cannot expect. So the receptors are nothing but the proteins again. So like this, a knowledge of or understanding the drug protein binding, it's very important, which helps us to come out with the proper dosage regime. So yesterday we begin with the kinetics aspect of the protein binding. As I told, it follows the nonlinear kinetics. The simple reason for this is it's a saturable process. So what is nonlinear kinetics? So drug protein binding follows the nonlinear kinetics. And as I said, as I told, it's the saturable process. So any of the saturable process generally follows the nonlinear kinetics. It doesn't give a straight line graphical representation when you plot the graph. Fine. same, but in case of straight line, instead of straight line, it's going to give us a curvy linear line. So now this process can be understood by writing the equation based on the law of mass action. Hope everyone would have written this. That is a protein, free protein plus the drug results in the protein and drug binding. Just the product. So there is a balance between these two. The either direction the process can happen because it is a reversible process. When the arrow mark are in the both the direction, that indicates that it's a reversible process. So with this basic equation, we are trying to come out with an equation which helps us to calculate the number of binding sites and also association constant. So ultimately that is what we are going to learn with the derivation of the equation and also understanding the kinetics of the drug protein binding. This equation, that was the keeping that as a basic equation, based on the law of mass action, we got to know that the association constant is another constant which plays its important role, which can be expressed as the ratio of the molar concentration of the product to the molar concentration of the individual reactants. So reactants, we are trying to correlate this with the chemical reaction. Definitely, because it's an interaction happening between the protein and the drug, chemical interactions. So it might form a strong covalent bond or it might form a weak hydrogen bond. So depending on that, it becomes reversible and the irreversible process. So this equation, whatever we are trying to use it for understanding the kinetics of the drug, this is based on the assumption that only one binding site is present per protein, knowing the fact that there is a chance that protein might contain more than one type of binding site, and particular binding site might be of might be in many numbers also. So with the assumption of only one binding site per protein, we are proceeding ahead. So this Ka is very important. That's what based on the kinetics of the drug protein binding, we are going to come out with the equation which helps us to calculate the association constant and also the number of binding sites. You will understand as we proceed. So right now with the basic equation based on the law of mass action, we are proceeding ahead. That equation has been substituted here with respect to association constant. Now further moving ahead, in order to clearly understand the drug protein binding relation or the relation between the drug and the protein, we need to determine a ratio called as the determinable ratio. So this helps us to study the binding behavior of the drugs to that particular protein. So this is called determinable ratio, represented by letter small r. So this determinable ratio is nothing but moles of drug bound to total moles of protein. So moles of drug we know nothing but drug bounded, nothing but it's the PD, and the total moles of protein is what? The protein is attached to drug, even that amount of protein should be considered, plus the free protein which would have not bonded to the drug. So it is the total mole of the protein. So now R has become the R has been simplified to this equation based on the first equation, based on the law of mass action, whatever the first equation was derived. Based on that equation is further utilized or used for simplifying the equation as per our need. So now further, this equations too, whatever the Ka equation is there, it has been rearranged, okay, and rearranged to get the molar concentration of the protein bonded to the drug. So now this value is substituted in this R equation, wherever the PD you can see. So further, after you substitute and simplify, you are going to get a final equation, that is the determinantal ratio R is equal to this K into D plus 1 plus, K into D divided by 1 plus K into D. D is nothing but the free drug components or the free drug concentration. K is the association constant, and there's nothing else in this equation. Is the R. Means if I want to know the determinantal ratio R value, I should have the value of the Ka. I should also have the value of the D. Fine. When I practically start planning, okay, let me start estimate this values, R value. When I practically start doing the experiment, I start finding difficult to determine the Ka. Though I might find the value of the D, there's a free concentration of the drug, by dialysis membrane method or the ultrafiltration method, whichever you might apply, and you determine the free concentration of the drug. But still I don't have the value for the Ka. That's when the practical difficulty starts. So remember, any of the equation we derive based on whatever the assumptions we make or applying whatever the laws we are using for deriving the equation, ultimately that equation should be practical. We should be able to apply practically. That's when we'll understand its application. Otherwise, it's not easy for us to understand what exactly the theoretically whatever we are learning. No, we are not able to apply it to practically, means it doesn't have any applications. So we should apply that equation ultimately practically. It should help us to come out with the values. So let's see how it can be proceeded. So right now we have come to one point where R is nothing but equal to the molar concentration of the drug bonded to the protein divided by the total molar concentration of the protein. Based on this, we came out with an equation, fine. So which gives an idea at least that the determinantal ratio of the binding capacity of a drug to a protein depends on the association constant. Mainly, it depends on the association constant. So further this equation, till now we have been assuming that only one independent binding site for each moles of the drug. So in this case assumes only one independent binding site for each mole of drug. See, we are talking with respect to moles. Okay, just remember as a moles. Okay, so one independent binding site for each mole of the drug means one mole of the drug can bind to one independent binding site. Now we know the fact that there are many number of binding sites in the protein of the same type. We are not gone to the types of binding sites. We are sticking on to one type, different number. In the beginning, we assume as only one binding site is present. Based on that, we came out with an equation, determinantal value R, and we have come out with the equation, simplified equation for the R value. Now further, we are going to expand that equation, assuming that if at all, if the binding site is more than one in number, which is represented by letter small n. So if there are n identical independent binding sites per protein molecule, then the following equation is used. Means we are going to modify the previous equation. This previous equation was derived for the only one binding site, assuming as a one binding site. And this binding is happening at the ratio of 1:1, 1 mole of protein with the 1 mole of drug. Okay. So now we know that there are number of binding sites. So in order to derive equation in this situation, we are assuming that there are more than one binding site, and that is represented by letter small n. We're just going to add that small n here. So this n indicates the identical independent binding sites. Identical means same binding site which is present more than one in number. So now that equation reduced to this equation, with only the small n is been added to that equation. Further, this has to be simplified. Fine. So protein molecules are quite large compared to the drug molecule and may contain more than one type of binding site for the drug. And that's the reason we are using the small letter n, which represent that number of binding sites. So now this further simplification of the equation is done by using the conversion value, the factor like Kd, which is nothing but 1 by K. Instead of Ka, Ka is the association constant, Kd is the dissociation constant. So I can even change that equation. R can also be determined if at all I know the value of Kd also. So I can simplify this equation with respect to Kd value also. So I have both the equation in my hand. One is the equation with respect to the Ka value, and another one is the equation with respect to the Kd value. It's only just the simplification with respect to Kd and the K. Ultimately, this equation is the final equation. Either I can use this or I can use this. But in our case, I have to stress upon the Ka because it's the association happening more than the dissociation. It's this, of course, dissociation happen after association. That is, it's a reversible process. But to understand the protein binding, this equation is important for us rather than this. But this can also be used if you really want to understand the dissociation, how fast the dissociation is happening. Okay, the binding has happened, we know that. Sometimes it happens it takes long time, I told you. That's the reason it called as irreversible process. Irreversible protein binding can happen with respect to the duration of the time. In that case, this KD value is very important for us, because it's the dissociation is important for us to understand. Depending on what is that you are planning to understand or the learn, you have to use either this equation or the second equation. Now, till now, initially we begin with one assumption that 1 mole protein binding, 1 mole of the protein is binding to 1 mole of the drug. Fine. In that 1 mole of the protein, we assume that only one binding site is present. Okay, that was also done. Later on, we assume that the same protein binding site, there are more than one number. So that's why we use the letter small n. Now we are trying to assume that there is a chance that more than one type of protein binding sites are present in the protein. Now that equation, in order to convert that into the equation, or in order to represent that in the equation form, this is how we are trying to write the equation. The first case, you can notice that I start adding the subscript 1, 2, 3. So I can start adding like K1, K2, K3. So this denominator, that is a subscript number, whatever we are designating in the equation, that represents the types of binding sites. If I know that, and if I want to know that whether it has more than one binding site or not, then the equation has to be reduced with respect to the number of types of binding sites, which is represented by adding the numbers 1, 2, 3 to the subscript of that particular letter. So this letter N is, you know that it is the number of identical binding site. N is the number of identical binding site. When I write N1, that is the number of identical binding site of site 1. If I write N2, it is the number of identical binding site of the binding site 2. So K1 represents the association constant for the binding site 1, and K2 represents the association constant for the binding site 2. So this, whatever we begin with the derivation of the equation, no, just it gives you an idea how exactly theoretically they imagine or they assume, more than a word imagine, how theoretically they assume certain things, and based on assumption how they derive the equation. That's what we have learned from this derivation. So still, practically, when I plan to do this, start imagining. Either I go with the test tube method or by the plasma sampling method. If I want to do the experiment, how I can do? So you start practically imagining that you are doing the experiment. It's not a simple job. Still, I have lot many doubts in my mind. How to determine this K1? How to determine this K2, N1, N2? Question mark. If all the values are given to you, if the N1 is this, if the K1 is this, find out the R value. You can easily simplify and you have the R value in your hand. But that doesn't happen. So let's understand how we can do the practically. Now I'm going to give you brief on the brief idea about how practically we can start doing the experiment. Fine. So test tube method, you start imagining. Okay. So we know the test tube method now, known concentration of the protein in the test tube. To that you are adding the different concentration of the drug. After some time, we have to give some time for the drug and protein interaction. No? After some time, you follow either the equilibrium dialysis method or the ultrafiltration technique. Why we do that? In order to separate the unbound drug. And you have to estimate the unbound drug and you have to estimate the bounded drug, and to know how much percent of the total free proteins are present, how much bonded proteins are present, or how much bonded drug is present. Everything has to be determined. Okay, fine. We have determined analytically all this. I know the value of free drug. I know the value of free protein. I know the value of the drug bonded to the protein. That is, I know P, I know D, I know PD. So experimentally, I have done this. Fine, I know all this. Now, by chance, okay, Since I know all this, if you go back to the equation, this equation 4, I said experimentally somehow I determined the PD or P value. So definitely I'll have the R value with me. So with this knowledge, with this information, if I plot the graph, that is the free drug concentration versus the R value. I'm repeating again. Start imagining the experiment. Imagine the test tubes. In the test tube rack, add the known concentration of the protein to the test tubes, and then you add the different concentration of the drug. Give some time interval for the protein drug binding to happen. Then subject that each test tube for the dialysis method and separate the unbounded drug from the bounded drug, and start estimating the amount of the free drug, amount of the free protein, and amount of the drug bonded to the protein. So I have all the values in my hand now. So there are techniques actually which we can easily utilize to determine all this. So don't worry, it is available. You can easily determine everything. So if everything is available for you, so R value is easy because R is nothing but PD divided by PD plus P. That is the total protein. Mole of protein bonded to the drug divided by total protein. So total protein is what? P protein plus the protein bonded to the drug. So I have got the R value for each test tubes. Okay. Now plot that against its respective concentration of the drug which you added to that particular test tube. This is how the graph looks for you. Fine, graph is coming. Everything is, you might feel, okay, graph is ready, but how this graph is going to help us? It is just giving us an idea what is happening to the R value with respect to the drug concentration. So as the drug concentration increases, R value increases, the binding capacity, it increases, moles of drug bound per mole of protein increases, and it reaches a level called as saturation level. Fine. But what is that? Can you get an idea about number of binding sites here? Do we got a value of N value? Do we get the value of Ka value? No. Still we have that difficulty of determining this. Only thing we understood the relation between the drug concentration and the R value. But still we are not able to determine the Ka value and the N value. Fine. So that's what the different in vitro approaches we are going to study. How to determine the Ka value and the N value. That's the determination of binding constants and the number of binding sites. So previously, this graph, what we could understand is, it's a non-linear graph. That's why the drug protein binding follows the non-linear kinetics. Because of simple reason is what? It is follows a straight line, then gradually it might take the curve. So overall it is a curvy linear or it's a curve line. So this curve line will not give us any information. So if you really want any information out of the graph, it's better, or any value to be calculated from the graph, it's always better to have a straight line. Okay, so straight line graphs are very important for in the kinetics, okay, to determine many of the values. So this equation 6, I have written the equation also here. This, whatever the final equation, we have simplified with respect to the R. R is what? Protein, moles of bounded protein divided by moles of total protein. And moles of total protein is what? Combination of bonded protein plus the free protein. Okay, fine. And that was simplified to get this equation, that N stands for the number of protein binding, identical binding sites. So this equation, because of the non-linearity, what we could refer with, or what we could observe in the previous graph, I want to convert that into linear. I want to make this line as a linear line, a straight line, without disturbing the values. Whatever the values we have determined, that without changing that value, I need to convert this curve line into straight line. So that because straight line gives more information than the curve line. So I'm converting this into straight line. That is a first approach, which helps us to determine the N value and the Ka value. And that first in vitro method, where you are converting the non-linear curve into a linear curve, is called as a double reciprocal plot method. Double reciprocal plot method. It's something very different. It's not very difficult to understand. I have already theoretically derived an equation. Theoretically, I have derived this equation. Now, I want to convert this equation such that I can apply it practically. Please understand, theoretical equation, okay, helps us to understand the process. Okay, now I want to use that, apply that equation practically. I may not be conveniently apply it as such, use it as such. So what I do is I convert that into the, or simplify that into the practical purpose. And that first method is called as a double reciprocal plot method. So it's just the reciprocal method. And remember this word reciprocal. I'm just taking the reciprocal of this equation. I've written here clearly. You can understand. Reciprocal. Hope everyone knows what is reciprocal. 1 by 2, 1 by 3, 1 by 4. All these are nothing but called as a reciprocal. So 1 by r, I'm just taking of reciprocal. You write 1 on the top of this equation, divide. Okay, so this becomes 1 by r, 1 by this entire equation. And you do the rearrangement. This becomes denominator and this becomes numerator. It flip-flops. It just goes up because we are taking the reciprocal. And this equation is further simplified, as you can see here. 1 by r is equal to 1 by n Ka into d plus 1 by n. Okay. One second. So in the double reciprocal plot, what we are going to do? The double reciprocal plot, what we are going to do is, we are taking the reciprocal of the equation, theoretical equation, whatever we have derived for the determinantal ratio, that is R value. So when you take the reciprocal and simplify that, we are simplifying this equation. Please write down, we are going to simplify that equation to straight line equation. The straight line equation is y is equal to mx plus c. I repeat again, what is the straight line equation? Straight line equation is y is equal to mx plus c. So y is 1 by r. Okay. Mx is this one and this is c. C is intercept. Okay. I don't know how much you can understand this. Next time I'll draw that and show it in the PPT. What is the straight line equation? So it is y is equal to mx plus c. Y is y-axis, x is x-axis. M is slope and the c is intercept. So it is the y is equal to mx. M is what here? The slope. X is what? 1 by d. Plus intercept value is what? 1 by n. So when we, after doing the in vitro experiment, I have two values in my hand. I have R value, which I could calculate. Just previously I told you, you can determine the R value by applying the molar concentration of, if you can determine all the values, you have the R value in your hand. Take the reciprocal of that R value, that becomes y-axis. I know the drug concentration, that is the moles of drug used in the experiment. I take the reciprocal of the drug concentration or the moles of the drug used, and I plot the points. I get a straight line. Now, intercept is 1 by n. That's what I said. C is 1 by n. So I get the value 1 by n with the intercept. I take the slope, and slope is what? 1 by n into Ka. Slope is m into x. I'm telling you, understand. Y is equal to m 1 by n into Ka into 1 by d is the x plus 1 by n. So when I plot the graph, I plot this 1 by d in the x-axis and I plot 1 by r in the y-axis. And 1 by r is nothing but the reciprocal of the r value, whatever you would have determined. And 1 by d is nothing but the reciprocal of the d value, which you would have determined experimentally. When I have these two values in my hand, now it's very easy for me because I have the different values for the different concentration of the drug and the different R value with respect to that each concentration of the drug. So the intercept, after drawing a straight line, I get an intercept value 1 by n, where I get the value of n easily. Remove the reciprocal. Don't just remove the 1 out of the equation. You have to convert that into other form. Okay, it comes in the fraction decimals. I have the n value with me. I know how to determine the slope. Take the triangle here, draw the triangle. Slope is equal to y1 minus y2 is equal to x2 minus x1. That formula you have to apply here. I get the slope value. I know the n value. I substitute the n value, which I would have got from this is the intercept value. I rearrange the equation. I get the Ka value. So this is what the application of the basic equation which we would have derived based on the some assumptions initially. So this was a theoretical equation, converted that into a practical equation without disturbing any of the values. It's only the rearrangement. If I rearrange back this equation, it comes to same the original equation. So that's why I'm telling the word rearrangement. I'm not adding or deleting anything out of the equation. I'm just rearranging that. And the rearrangement method, first method is called as the double reciprocal plot. Okay. What's the advantage of rearranging or taking the reciprocal of the equation? This is the basic equation that gives us a straight line equation. What is the advantage of straight line equation? Straight line equation helps us to come out with all the required values which is required for us to calculate. That is especially the n value and the Ka value. So n is the number of identical sides and K is the association constant. So it looks very simple now. So theoretically, though we have derived with so many assumptions, practically the final equation was slightly rearranged so that we can apply it in the graphical, or you can represent that equation graphically based on the experimental data, and we calculate all the required values out of that graph. So that's the advantage of the graphical representation of any data. So both things you have understood now: use of application and rearrangement of the equation, and use of that equation for the graphical presentation of the same. Fine. The next method is called as a scattered plot. Please write down the first one is called as a reciprocal method and the second one is called as the scattered plot method. In this slide, there was a drawback with respect to the reciprocal method. Maybe in the graph it is not visible. Generally what happens, most of the points get aggregated at the bottom. Too many points, and one or two get scattered somewhere at the top. So many times we don't get a proper straight line when you try to draw. So too much of crowded points at one point of the line, the one side of the line. So we want a well scattered points, like beautifully scattered throughout the line. So that's why we go to the next in vitro approach called as the scattered plot. Again here, in both the cases, whether it is a reciprocal or in case of scattered, the objective is to convert the equation into straight line. In the case of reciprocal, we have taken the reciprocal of the equation like 1 by r, but in case of scattered plot, we are not taking the reciprocal, we are rearranging the equation. We are shifting that numerator towards the left side, as you can see here. This entire numerator is shifted to the left side. We are simplifying this further to such an extent that it resembles the straight line equation. So y is equal to mx plus c. Again, this equation, whatever we are going to learn, it is nothing but y is equal to mx plus c. So this is y, r by d is the y value, and the